Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we look at Star Wars for Warhammer 40K, episode 25, The Herald. Last time around we got to the title card saying we're going to get to the Herald now. Admittedly, that's a lot sooner than I expected. I thought maybe like at the very end we get a little teaser of them and a reveal, and then the next episode will be it. I don't know. But what we are getting though is the Herald. If it sounds like I'm a little hyper about this, it's because I'm actually really excited because people have built this up. There's only a few people on the 40K side who could justify this that aren't Primarchs because Primarchs were explicitly banned by 40K standards. By fan because he said they break the setting, and frankly, I mean they break 40K. Even Rabuti killing back made the Indominus Crusade happen and really upended most of the narrative. And frankly, I mean, the narrative needed to be updated, but who cares? More importantly, I mean, other than some of the big name traders like Cor Farron or Erebus, and frankly, if it's either of those, that would be kind of insane in its own right, and still probably almost as broken as a Primarch for different reasons. I don't know who this is going to be. I honestly don't really care because at this point, I just want to see who it is. Otherwise, you guys know the deal. Link below video. Hit it up. Let's get started. I wonder who it's going to be. Do we get the reveal right away or after?
Anakin had maintained some vague hopes and suspicions about what, or rather, who he might find inside the Imperial prisoner's coffin.
Oh, is he expecting someone?
Perhaps a bedraggled, tortured husk of a man, or a resilient soul confined within a starved and ravaged body. As the heavy doors of the Iron Maiden-like coffin squealed open and lifted away, Anakin found himself both correct.
What are the chances it's that one guy whose name I can never remember from the Night Lords who was like the only non-asshole one? I mean, still a Night Lord, but by comparison less. Sevatar? I'm not sure if that's his name.
And surprised at
That'd be a weird one.
The being he found within those cold confines of ceramite and steel was massive.
Okay,
and
so it is a
seemed
Space Marine, which is
composed
right.
of scarred, tortured muscles and
Generic
altered,
Space Marine
dusky flesh.
Dusky.
As Anakin absorbed these details,
Not sure
he
what that
was
would hint
struck
at.
at once by a terrible sense of recognition.
What?
This man was no mere man, nor even an alien of any kind.
Stardies?
This
yeah,
prisoner held before him was a space marine.
Yep.
One of the gene-enhanced super soldiers of their enemy, and among the last things he had expected to find waiting within.
Because he doesn't know about the schisms,
Anakin's eyes widened, and then blazed with what little force potential he had left, enabling the Jedi to see clearly even in the poor lighting of the room. His strength...
Now, this is going to sound weird, but I didn't realize that's actually a power the Jedi had. It's probably not even the dumbest. I mean, fire is a power they can do, or pyrokinesis with the Force. So it's not that weird that they can just see better. That's basic self-enhancement. But I don't know why it just never occurred to me that's something they could do.
In the Force was enough to reveal arcane etchings coating the prisoner Marine's dark skin.
What?
Carved across scars from countless battles, while rune...
No way. They wouldn't. I mean, I'm going Erebus because he's the only one I know with things carved into his skin, but there has to be other people I'm just not thinking about.
Circles born of more recent struggles were branded
Maybe Anakin
into the
will be lucky
man
and just kill
by
him.
the coloring of unnatural inks and fire conjoined. He had no arms, his limbs having been removed below his mountainous shoulders during
Now I am actually hoping it's Erebus because fuck him. He does not get arm privilege today.
his incarceration. His eyes, too, had been cut out of his skull.
Really hoping it's
during
Erebus,
a
but I have
similar
no idea who the
process.
hell this is.
The skin around those vacant pits having been stitched shut.
Ow.
But that was not all.
No legs.
Across the Astartes' bedraggled body were long, thick piercings composed of straight rods of black metal, each mercilessly inserted into his living flesh, though not...
Black metal? I can't tell if Fan's just doing a extra bit of detail here saying it's black rods. But my initial thought is that seems like a mini pylon, which would disrupt warped, and considering where they're at, that would make sense. So I'm assuming this is a wizard. I don't think it'd be Armin. I don't think he did the tattoo thing.
Not in ways which would prevent his movement, at least not by much. Just looking at these metal bars made Anakin's head pound. and he was instantly
Or
aware
maybe
of
they
their
were.
bizarre nature,
Okay,
sensing with startling
Blackstone.
precision the effects the rods were having on the area around them. They were each swallowing up what little presence of the Force could exist and numbing it to nothing. It was
Definitely
not
a
unlike
psyker.
the effects of a Ysalamiri, though operating on completely different principles.
I know I've heard the word before,
He
but I'm pulling a
moved
blank.
his eyes away from the rods, feeling his own strength departing with each passing second he stared at them. Enhanced eyes shifting back towards the man's face. Held upside down as Anakin had been, without arms and with ankles bound together by closely linked chains
she's all
of
his feet
ceramite,
privileges.
the Jedi had expected the man to flop onto the ground with all the grace and certainty of a dying fish. Instead,
himself up?
the scarred space marine flexed what remained of his considerable muscles, holding himself inside the coffin for a few moments while he folded his body in half at the waist and drunkenly rolled himself forward onto his joined feet, managing more grace with the movement than Anakin had during his own release.
Damn.
The Astartes then slowly rose to stand, appearing powerful in spite of all the deprivations he had suffered.
Like lack of arms and eyes.
Even as he slumped under the weight of what must have been unimaginable fatigue. In spite of that gesture, however, the Marine bore his teeth in a large tombstone smile, and soon he was speaking as well. Evidently, his tongue had not been removed, and his lips had not been sewn shut.
Admittedly, they want to interrogate him, so it makes sense, but on the other hand, the Inquisitor seems to be taking liberties. Admittedly, Inquisitor, that's literally their thing.
As his eyes had.
You have my profound gratitude, stranger. I hope that you can understand my own tongue, as I very much like to converse with someone other than Thoth for a change.
Then who? Oh, Thoth. Okay. I thought he said Fop. Yeah.
Said
Teasing
the
us.
Marine in an oddly refined accent.
You have not
Who's
the
the
bearing or the caution of an Inquisitor or his agents.
Yep.
The man went on.
Anakin is in not
Am
a
I
good
correct
place.
in assuming a shared purpose between us?
He asked. Anakin took a half step back, even bowed by torture and reduced as he was. The Space Marine was almost a head taller than the Jedi, and
There are very few Space Marines that go traitor that would be this not immediately killy, even to their own people. Admittedly, I think they would just want to relieve stress, and some of them do that. Night Lords, for one, and I mean, of course, Khorne, but that's different. Sorry, is this Erebus putting on airs because manipulation is his bullshittery?
in a million small, subtle ways, Anakin could see that the
Or who
man
else
he
could it be?
faced was less a man than he was some kind of bioengineered weapon.
Accurate.
His skin was pocked with scars from other such implements and foes, both alien and unimaginable, puckered with mechanical sockets meant for weapon and armor integrations. And his entire body could be nothing but the result of intense genetic manipulation.
Yeah, after the fact, even.
As he absorbed his details, Anakin found himself wondering if the man thing which stood before him had even been the product of a natural birth. And as he did, for the briefest moment, a shadow of horror crossed over the Jedi's mind. The image of countless tanks in dark laboratories, growing these men, these things in mass, forced its way into his mind.
As far as I know, the only people who grow the replacement Astartes are the Iron Warriors. If that's the case, I have no idea who this is, because I do not know any Iron Warrior characters other than Perturabo, and I don't think he does anything.
But what terrified him about that image was not the idea that the Imperials were doing such things, but rather
There is one other person I know who would do things with laboratories. They wouldn't. Fan wouldn't. I mean, I swear to God, that guy could break the setting more than... Oh.
rather how easily he could see the Republic imitating them. Was this where they were headed?
Yes.
Had he not already seen the beginnings
that was
of
a vision
this
of his
very
future.
process incarnated within the men he had come to this ship with?
Yes.
In the clones? In
Yep.
Clone Force 99 itself? The thought was too potent and
I want to read that or listen to that again. He mentioned that he saw something pushing in his mind. I thought it was a vision of this guy, but maybe it's a vision of his future.
see the Republic imitating the Earth. And as he did, the body could be knocked foes, both alien and Anakin found himself wondering if the man thing which stood before him had a fist moment. A shadow
There
of
we go.
horror crossed over the Jedi's
Is it
mind.
his future or this guy's?
The image of countless tanks in dark laboratories, growing these men, these things in mass.
I mean, I want to say that this is probably the 40K side he's getting a view of, but there's been enough random comics of Vader tampering with this kind of stuff in dark laboratories, and not so much sure about tanks, that it could be just regular Star Wars side.
Forced its way into his mind. But
There we go.
what terrified him about that image was not the idea he could see the Republic imitating them.
With the 99,
Was
yeah, I heard
this
part.
very process incarnated within the men he had come to this ship with? In the clones? In Clone Force 99 itself? The thought was too potent and too strangulating to handle now, and so he shoved
Spoke
it
the
back,
spider
taking a
to
deep
the
breath
fly,
before
it
he began
seems.
to speak. I can understand you. You're lucky I've always been good with languages. My name is Anakin Skywalker, and I'm a general for the Galactic Republic. Glad as I am to lend my aid to any prisoner in need, I'm going to have to ask you something in return for my services.
How to get out?
Anakin said. The huge, armless man smirked.
Well, I am hardly in any position to pay you back at this
He'd offer a head, but I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. There's literally no excuse.
moment. However, if I can be free of this place...
The Space Marine began to say. Anakin raised his hand instinctively, making to speak, and was momentarily shocked when the man cut himself off, going silent as though he could see the gesture, which the Jedi knew he could not.
Oh, he definitely can.
Without missing the beat,
That's a
Anakin
psycho, all
spoke.
right.
Actually, you are. What I want isn't so different from what I assume the people who have you here want. I have questions I'd like to ask you. The Jedi said to the Marine. The man paused as he listened, and did not answer
This
right
is
away.
probably confusing him because
Instead, he sniffed the
he does
air
not
briefly, rolling a large...
he really doesn't get it, and I mean that on both sides. Anakin doesn't get the division going on here, and the Space Marines probably quickly realizing it's not just that they have a similar purpose, it's that he has literally no idea who he's talking to, as I don't either at this point, but I have questions, but I didn't... I'm getting the distinct feeling Anakin would probably be safer if he just went Darth Vader at this point than doing anything with this guy. Because any Chaos Space Marine who is a psyker, because there's really no other reason to hold him here, but also has enough self-control to not go completely batshit evil constantly at all times, that's dangerous levels.
discolored tongue across chapped and scarred lips. He seemed to wait, tasting the air before nodding his head.
I see. And what if I'm reluctant to...
Really, fan? I mean, I gave in to the hand joke. You're just going with the joke about the eye. The guy whose eyes are literally removed and stitched shut. I see. I don't even think he did that as a joke. I think he literally is just putting it in there because it's a very common turn of phrase.
answer any questions? What if I suspect this is just another ploy to loosen my lips and to make me speak where before I was silent?
Were you
The
silent?
Marine asked, arching an eyebrow over the shallow skin of one of his closed eye sockets. In response, Anakin swung his saber towards the man, bringing his weapon down in an overhead chop. The Marine tensed and leaned back to the side in an awkward
He can
retreat,
see.
narrowly dodging the humming blade with the ugly but effective maneuver.
But he wasn't expecting that
The
type of
saber
weapon.
came down dramatically,
still able to
gouging
respond
an
to
inch
it.
into the ground before Anakin drew it back. The Marine's feet spread into a ready crouch, a sheen of sweat slicking his head as adrenaline began to pump. Anakin noticed that the air was suddenly spiked with an acidic aftertaste, as if the man's sweat itself was a chemical byproduct of a more mechanical being.
Did they actually put in who I think they put in? There's no way they put in Fabulous Bill. I mean, he probably would be the one best able to corrupt anything and also still make them work for him. Who knows? He might even get along with Palpatine as much as he gets along with anyone, which is admittedly to their own detriment. And frankly, I would love to see him destroy Palpatine. That would actually be an upside. But
the man flared his nostrils, crouching, predatory nature emerging, before relaxing as he realized what Anakin
gave away his eyes.
If you refuse to answer my questions, Anakin said, spinning his saber back in front of him, then that will be all the help you get from me. The Jedi said with his own smirk, deactivating his saber as he spoke and half turning away from the Space Marine, whose ankles were no longer bound together thanks to Anakin's strike.
Oh.
Good luck breaking out of this place without us.
Admittedly, I think he's probably able to right now. They really should have removed his legs. They really should have removed his legs.
He added,
Granted, it seems extreme to remove the arms, but
for effect. The Marine seemed stunned for a second, face tensing and neutral before melting into a tense smile.
And I just got why he's stunned. Because the guy is acting like he can't get out on his own because he assumes the guy who's obviously a psyker, but he doesn't know he's a psyker, can't get out on his own. Where anyone from the Imperium side who has the ability to get here would be like, no, he doesn't need us at all to get out at this point. He's more than capable. Because psyker. Arms are a nice extra at that point. Same with eyes, because as we've seen, they can see just fine. And Anakin's acting like he doesn't know any of that, which he doesn't. I swear, the biggest thing throwing off the Space Marine at this point is probably the sheer ignorance Anakin is displaying. And he doesn't realize he's displaying it. It makes sense. If anything, I just kind of want to see the Space Marine's thoughts about how gullible someone is, followed by, oh, well, this is very different. Or when they try and reach out to the warp, and it's not going to try and demand sacrifices of them.
His tight grin revealing massive, blocky teeth, some of which were broken or had been removed.
A relevant point.
Is it?
I see you have some burning questions.
The Space Marine said, standing straighter once more.
And I've many
Darth
answers
Vader?
to satiate you with, General. More than you can well imagine. But let us
you should
limit
not imagine.
ourselves to the things of relevance. At least for the moment.
The man said, sounding only a little tired. Anakin turned back around, facing towards him fully and smiling for a moment before pausing to think. He stroked his own chin, wondering what manner of query he should prioritize,
that's gonna be what it is, and that's probably going to be right where he cuts
limited. Only what he needed to know in order to understand if he could take this Space Marine with him.
Who are
If
you?
he could, then he would be able to ask all the questions he wanted once they were both safe and outside of this cursed prison. Do you work for the Imperium? Are you their ally? Anakin asked. The man chuckled and shook his blind head.
The worst part is he doesn't even need to lie about this. He can be completely honest about that. Tell the complete and utter truth. And Anakin, because of lack of context, as long as it's not put in the most evil way possible, might actually believe him and take the completely wrong information from it. The right information would be run. The wrong information is not run.
Though that was not enough confirmation for the Jedi. Even as the Space Marine began to answer, Anakin reached out as far as he could with his limited power, limiting himself to the very edge of his surface thoughts for safety's sake.
Feeling that he's a psyker.
Even so, the effort made him sweat, and the Marine seemed not to notice it.
Did he, though?
No.
The larger warrior said. Anakin focused, holding back a hiss as he inspected the Astartes' claim with the Force. The act would have been very difficult as it was, But in addition to the silenced air between them, the horrible pressure of the force-denying field
The
which
rods in
surrounded
him.
them both, the Jedi Knight found himself having to also manipulate his influence carefully around the strange, straight bars of black metal which were inserted into the man's body. The horrid element seeking to grasp his metaphysical attempts to confirm the truth and silence them. The sensations he got from the bars were bizarre.
Oh?
Mechanical, yet not mechanical.
Oh.
There was a manufactured, almost droid-like quality to their vampiric effects on his strength, one which felt as though it went far beyond the mere mundanity of a...
Now, that is actually kind of fascinating to me. I assumed they were just Blackstone. I know there's an appropriate name for it. I cannot remember it, and I don't want to go look it up on Wikipedia right now. Or Wahipedia, whatever. But the fact that they feel mechanical means that they're implemented anti-psyker bars? I was expecting something psychic, something religious, something Necron, and I guess mechanical would do that, but I thought the bars were just metal imbued with the anti-fuck you beam stuff. Until they got to the bigger level where it actually was machinery.
A refined ore. As he considered this, the
Could still be
Marine
Necron.
continued to speak.
I am no ally to the now fallen Imperium. Long ago, I did serve as their soldier, their killer. Now
Okay,
I am
he's from
my
the
own
Crusade.
soldier, and I kill only for myself and my legion. Where once I
Yep.
dispensed death in the name of the Emperor,
Now he turns it
I
into-
choose where and who is deserving of it.
Who did he possibly pick up? It's someone from the Crusades, so that gets rid of a lot of later traitors, because he said his legion, not his warband, and he said now fallen, as opposed to the fallen, which would be something a later Marine who in Chaos would say, because it has always been fallen from them. So this is someone who was there during the height of the Imperium before they believed it became everything else after the Horus Heresy, or before, prior, whatever the Chaos side believes.
He said,
it, though?
and from the limited power Anakin commanded, the Jedi Knight parsed each word, looking for any sign of deception, and could sense no
like
falseness
fans
or
giving
lies
so
from
many
the prisoner's
hints, but-
claims.
And what of you?
The Marine added as the Jedi contemplated his answer. Anakin raised an eyebrow at that. What about me? Anakin asked.
Are you a slave to the current Imperium? Does your
Give it a minute.
republic pay tribute to them? Do you kneel before the Golden Throne?
The rogue Marine
I just realized I've been thinking that the Space Marine would take advantage of them because of a misunderstanding the entire time. And I still think that will definitely happen. But I didn't even think that it could go both ways, because right now he's like, oh, yes, so you're obviously not on my side, which he's had clarified and showed a little stupefaction of it. Momentary, but for a Space Marine, that's huge. But the fact that he's asking these questions in the first place, it's either he suspects and he's getting confirmation, or he's just building it up to start tossing this guy around after gloating a bit, which admittedly, Chaos Space Marine, they all do that. Except for the ones who like to go to other methods and cause other aspects. And yeah. He doesn't seem like Nurgle, so I don't think he's going that way. Doesn't seem like Slanesh, so I don't think he's going that way. He's probably one of the renegades instead of the more directly controlled ones, because it's definitely not Khorne. He's calm. Zinj could work, because random bullshit plans that I don't get are completely perfectly in line. Slanesh acting perfect might fit, but usually they're more... I just wouldn't assume that. Nurgle? No, this guy's in way too good shape. There's no way... Armless. There's no way this is Abaddon. Yeah, that there's no way. And of course, if they was armless, then the joke would be, have failed, but on the armless, because his initial model always had the arms fall off, because just bullshit standards of having it actually fit together, and just, new model looks good. If that's actually what, if it turns out to be Abaddon, I'm going to laugh my ass off because of the armless joke. I doubt it, because that would be a huge huge power creep. And also, any Inquisitor stupid enough to keep Abaddon alive is probably more dangerous than Abaddon itself, because they could get away with doing things internally in the Imperium that Abaddon would actively have to start a crusade to do.
Asked. Anakin's face grew lined, and he almost spat onto the floor, the very notion of the act bringing bile to his mouth. More shockingly, however, he felt a soft press on his senses and began to wonder if there was not more to this man than steely muscle and
well, he's finding it out then,
will.
that's good.
Whether that was truth or delusion, Anakin answered honestly. They wish. We are currently at war with them, and I'll see every blaster used up to its last bolt before I allow anything like that to happen, the Jedi Knight said, spitting the words with a true conviction.
This is going to sound weird, and I don't think this could happen, just to put that in the front. If it turned out this was a renegade Space Marine who hadn't gone full chaos, hearing these words right now of a not crazy human, I mean, compared to some of the people on the chaos side, that's a very low bar, say, I am going to fight, and that there's a war going on. It's like, oh, a bunch of easily manipulated people who are willing to do my war for me? Sign me up. That would be a very interesting proposition to see them in a setting which might not immediately throw the Space Marine into the Chaos side, as opposed to 40K, where Renegade is basically Chaos Light. It's just a matter of time, is what it usually feels like. Granted, the setting didn't progress for so long that it never actually progressed, but you know what I mean. If it's flat out Chaos, though, they're definitely going to try and corrupt the Imperium, is what I would say, except Palpatine. He might actually take more offense to this than the Imperium trying to squash him. An enemy he can deal with. Someone trying to take over his own internal corruption? Unforgivable. That's why
the
this entire thing's
large,
going on.
armless man's smile grew a little wider at the sound of that tone, hearing the fervor in the young general's voice and knowing it signaled fertile soil for opportunity. The Crimson Path would be blazed yet, and it seemed his time as nothing more than a herald was reaching its penultimate conclusion. As he pondered this, the Jedi asked his next question.
Harn?
Whom do you serve then, if not the Imperium? Besides yourself, I mean. Are you a part of some larger organization or ideology?
Okay.
What is your...
Yeah... God damn it, fan. You even have the music swelling to make it more exciting as he's asking. I mean, 1, good choice. 2,
Legion. And where are they now? Anakin asked, his words cutting through the Marine's thoughts.
Warps can technically be connected.
Though I serve by my own choice, I have indeed chosen a new master.
Who?
And a new way of being that is apart from the insanity of the Imperium.
Different
I serve
insanity.
the black and gold, and I am known by others of my branding as the Herald of the Crimson Path. I come before the War Master of the Imperium in order to prepare the way for my legion.
Oh, black and gold, I'm pretty sure that is. Wow. I completely forgot the name. Huh. Well, that's actually a little... That's disturbing. I just completely forgot Abaddon's entire legion's name. Wow. Hell, I even forgot what they used to be called under Horus. Luna Wolves, that's it. Why do I remember that? I don't even play 30K.
The Black Legion.
Oh, Black Legion.
He said. Anakin cringed at the words. Crimson Path, War Master.
Yeah, he's getting the right impression.
Legion? None of those names inspired much
the
hope
Herald?
in the
The
Republic
model
General, and the Jedi made a mental
stuff?
note in that moment. Even if
Or
he
someone
did
else?
end up
Didn't think he
freeing
was a
this
psyker.
warrior, he'd have to be careful, lest this nefariously named faction follow in the wake of the Imperials and become a third antagonist in their war.
Technically, that would happen,
Legion?
yes.
No offense, but that hardly sounds better than the Imperium of Man. What is the goal of your legion? What are you after?
Death.
Anakin asked. The man turned to the Jedi then, angling his head as though he could see him despite the Marine's obvious lack of eyes. Anakin watched as the man's expression lost much of its levity, line...
Because he just made the biggest insult saying, you sound just like the Imperium, which admittedly is kind of badass that Anakin could do that right now. It's such an innocent thing to say that it is more insulting because of it. Because it's an unbiased perspective, not being said out of hatred. It's literally just, you kind of sound the same. It's probably worse that way.
Drawing over dark skin.
The Black Legion exists for a single primary purpose. We live and fight, and many times we die, in order to finally kill the Emperor of the Imperium. We exist to bring a just reckoning to the false Imperium. My brothers in black and I have a common cause to hate the corpse throne and the many tyrannies of its countless underlings. We will not cease, we will not rest, and we will not stop our long war.
Admittedly, he's giving the most pleasant way to say exactly what they're doing and completely glossing over everything else. So he's very much a Space Marine that's good at manipulation. I mean, we knew that in the sense that he didn't immediately try and kill someone, and he's talking, which for a Chaos Space Marine, not trying to immediately fuck over everyone, implies a lot of control. We already talked about that, but I don't know any famous psychers in the Black Legion. And this guy has to be a psyker because all of the controls around him do not make sense otherwise. Or a famous priest. I mean, there's always the Herald of Abaddon, the model, but I thought that guy just had a special feature of having a jump pack and a spear, not that he was a psyker in his own right. It's not Abaddon because he
the
works for the Legion.
insanity of the Imperium is finally brought to a long and overdue end. And our War Master, Abaddon, sits the burnt throne. In short, Anakin Skywalker, the Black Legion exists to free ourselves and excoriate the filth and ignorance that rules over our galaxy in the...
And he's unintentionally giving the best pitch possible. Nope, scratch that. This is very intentionally the best pitch possible to tell the truth and completely lie in the same time.
Form of the dead and mute idiot god.
Oh, they're actually showing a picture of the God Emperor.
Imperium.
Didn't think they would do that.
Now it was Anakin's turn to smile. While he could easily see that this man was no obvious friend of his Republic, the animosity the Marine had towards the Imperium was a weapon of its own, and one Anakin was craving to wield. He needed more insight, more power, more ways to fight the Golden Throne in all its horrendous incarnations. And in this traitor, the Jedi General saw the potential for all of that and much, much more.
Oh yeah.
All right,
there's a lot
Herald
more
of
there.
The Black Legion, if I free you, if I take you before the members of my council and stand for you before them, will you help me? The Jedi Knight asked.
Help you what?
Destroy
The
the Imperium?
Space Marine replied without hesitation. Will you help me, help the Republic, rebuff this Imperial invasion? Will you help us learn about this enemy? Will you help us crush them in battle and defeat them in this war? Anakin asked.
He's
The
saying
Marine
all the
was
weird
silent
things.
for a few moments. His
See, usually this is the part where the Marine's like, I have told you my thing, and now I will trust you to my... You're actually okay with this already? I just want that moment of a snicker that he's actually being volunteered to do the thing he wants them to do already. It just works out so perfectly this way.
face blank as he seemed to consider what few options he
He
had
has to
left.
play nice, though, and that might be
If
hard.
you help free me from this prison, if you offer me shelter and safety from my pursuers,
Palpatine will shit
then
bricks.
yes, I will help you, General of the Republic.
Said the man. The Jedi smiled and stepped forward. All right,
Offered a
then
shake?
consider it a deal. Anakin said, extending his hand out towards the renegade, only belatedly remembering that the man was armless and drawing his
God
hand
damn
back
it,
a second
Anakin.
later in mild chagrin. The Marine scoffed slightly and smirked a toothy, broken grin.
Yeah.
Did you just extend your hand towards me?
He's even calling him out on it.
The man asked, sounding unexpectedly amused.
Pretend you didn't see that?
No, obviously not. Anakin said, face burning just
Why is this scene so cute and funny? How the hell did Fan make an obvious Chaos Space Marine and Anakin on the cusp of Vader funny and whimsical? This is a small moment of levity. Sorry, this has been building up so much. It's hitting me a lot harder than most of the other moments that are like this. Like before, it's well done. Here, though, it's just that sudden situational humor achieved effectively. Oh, dear God. If I don't call this something about the Herald gets a hand, I will be living down to exactly as bad as my puns usually are.
A little. I was swatting a fly. Anakin lied. One last question, Herald. He added, changing the subject. What are those bars you have pierced through you? They feel
That's why I'm not sure who this is.
Unnatural.
Psyker.
The Jedi said. The
Or
man
Demon
almost
Prince?
seemed to look down at himself for a moment before venting out a heavy sigh.
They're a countermeasure, a barbaric means of making sure I cannot use my warp-based abilities to aid myself.
Yep, Psyker.
They are a brutal redundancy. I could not touch the warp in any potent or meaningful way. Not while I'm locked in this place.
Meaningful, though, for some of that
Even
level.
if I removed... Wait. Are you touching those bars? Physically?
The Space Marine asked suddenly. No, I'm, sensing them. I also have, warp.
Okay, so that is actually clarified. He didn't know Anakin was pressing against his mind. I was assuming he was aware of it, but no, he isn't, because he wouldn't have been surprised about this. And also, he's probably disappointed because having the eye or the bars physically touched just pull them out. He could probably survive that.
Abilities of my own. I can still use them, but only a little. Anakin said. The man looked shocked, as though he had been suddenly slapped across the face or dunked into ice.
Anakin accidentally just flexed on him with the power in the warp. Oh my God, he just... Because this guy says it's a redundancy, meaning that the room is so warded itself, so dampened with all the other layers, that his strength is going to be the same with or without them in there, but it's the Imperium, so needlessly harsh redundancies are actually one of their better features. But then Anakin's like, yeah, I'm in this room that's completely squashed you before they stab things through you, and I'm just, it's like, I'm a bit weaker right now. I can still do shit, though, as opposed to this guy who's like, the fuck? I can barely feel things out. He's accidentally flexing on the Psyker. Anakin just rubbing the chosen one in his face.
Ice cold water.
So you are sensing them in
Yep.
here, right now.
Yep.
He asked, a touch of astonishment tinting the man's voice. Anakin nodded and scratched the back of his head. Well, yeah, right now. I did get fully cut off when I came near that crazy,
Lady.
whatever that woman is who's patrolling in the halls out there. Otherwise, yes, I can still feel the warp. But calling on it is like trying to suck air through a straw.
But you
I
have
can
a
barely manage
straw.
it. Anakin admitted. The man paused, languishing in stunned silence for a couple of moments before shaking his head in a resigned way.
What is your ideology, General?
The
Jedi.
Space Marine suddenly asked. Anakin seemed shocked by the question, but answered it nonetheless. I serve the Jedi Knights of the Galactic Republic, he said.
Jedi? Did you say Jedi Knight?
Why does that seem to be recognition? How? What? What?
The Marine asked. Yes, do you know of us?
No?
Anakin asked back. The name seemed to stir something inside the man, but after several terse seconds, his feet sliding over the floor in an odd way, he spoke again.
No, I do not.
That is very much a lie, because Fan would never have called out that that name meant anything to him. The initial assumption is no previous contact. There's the beliefs that it might be a different sect that came over to the 40K side. And that's the belief on the Star Wars side, because why they're human. But honestly, I thought that was just their own little internal fluff. Maybe this guy is part of that coalition, came in during the Dark Age of humanity, or also know the Golden Age of technology. But I don't know now, because he had recognition of that name, even if it's just some inkling through the warp, maybe, but he can't get that right now because he's cut off from it. And that's why he's so surprised that they could do that. That is very much not what I was expecting. Unless the Star Wars side is right and the people in Star Wars came to the 40K side and became the 40K side. And this guy's just going off old stories he has prior to Space Marine. That would be a good way to shock someone. The knowledge of you as a kid that you've probably disregarded entirely turning out to be useful.
But I thought, in any case, we should direct our attention to escaping.
How did he hear about it?
It is only a matter of time before we are discovered in this room and recaptured.
Is he not going to tell us his name?
Becoming a prisoner yourself succeeded in getting you inside this cell. But
Yep.
I doubt any ploy of similar direction will work to get us out.
I mean, yeah, but also, Anakin has a habit of getting kidnapped, and I think about it. It doesn't happen often, but it's more than once.
The Space Marine said. Anakin grinned and looked down at R2-D2, who whirred in response. You could say I've got a skeleton key to this prison, at least for now. When you've got the strength to, I'll open the door and... The Jedi Knight began to say.
That will not work. Your man of iron may have been able to sneak in here, but sneaking both of us out may have been able to sneak in, not work. Your man of iron may have been able to...
Oh. Okay. This is not 40K old. This is not 30K old. This guy is the collapse of humanity's golden age old. Because there are very, very few people who are not Mechanicus that know about the Men of Iron. Most Space Marines probably don't know about this because they're destroyed. Knowing about that is guaranteeing I have absolutely no idea who this is. This might be an original creation by fan then. But this is someone who either has knowledge of a time period that most of the Imperium, most of Chaos do not touch on. The only thing that know anything about that would be the Votan. And I mean that not in the leagues of Votan, the dwarves. I mean the actual Votan themselves, the AI that are old and to the point of slowing down due to redundancies, actually breaking their minds. I have no idea who this guy is, but he is significantly better informed than the vast majority of 40K.
Sneak in here, but sneaking both of us out will be impossible. And the instant the enemy knows I'm free, they will come for us.
They're a bit distracted
with
right now.
They have. It'll be far more than either of us can deal with together or alone.
The crippled Marine said.
You want to open a way to the
I
warp?
guessed that much from the security I saw when I came in, but we have no other option. Would it be better to wait here until we are discovered naturally? Maybe overwhelm the guards? Anakin asked. The man chuckled at the idea.
As cathartic as that would be, it would get us no closer to being free. No, I think we will need a different key. Not the one at your side, but the one in your hand.
A lightsaber.
Said
Yeah,
the prisoner.
I mean, it's a
his
good way to
feet
get out of things.
ceasing their sweeps as he found the inch-deep divot in the floor, the one Anakin had left in the ground when he'd freed the Marine from his shackles.
Admittedly, when he first said skeleton key, I thought he meant the lightsaber before R2-D2 was mentioned. Because both work very well, actually. It's actually kind of amazing anyone thinks they can stop a Jedi from going someplace considering they have access to all that shit. Not always astromech droids of R2's level, but just astromech droids in general, and lightsabers.
Anakin smirked dubiously at that, looking down at his saber. I suppose I could cut our way out.
Yeah.
But how would that be any better than silently taking the door? He asked.
Because we are not heading for the exit. We are heading for
Aramon?
an armory of sorts.
Oh. I don't know. I just get geek moment, an armory in 40K because of playing Dark Tide, because of just seeing all the models with all the guns. I'm just like, ooh, shiny. Yeah, I'm guilty of that. Interesting that he's pointing out Armin. I didn't think he would be the one in there because I don't think he has anything to do with the Black Legion. It's probably just image for the sake of Psyker.
Is alleviate ourselves of this psychic suppression. In the center of this facility, there is a machine that suppresses our connection to the warp.
Oh, he knows about that.
Reaching it will be
Probably can
impossible.
feel it.
It's too heavily guarded, but it's also insufficient to cover the entire prison. To shore up the edges and gaps, each of these rooms is constructed with a room beneath it, where sit 3 or 4 blanks.
The Marine explained. Blanks? Anakin asked.
Soulless.
They are anti-psychers, where we pull in the power of the warp and connect to it. They repel it and push it away. We need to kill them and head towards the port side until we exit the influence of the suppressor.
Admittedly, that would work, but the other option they can go into is just walk out the hole they make from their own tunnel and collapse things behind them. 40K engineering is usually really good to stop people from following you. I mean, it really is. Granted, they could probably get around, but at that point, there's a lot of other things happening they might be distracted with.
Said the ravaged captive. Port side. Wait, that's the opposite direction of the entrance I came in through. Is there another exit in that direction?
I mean, it's a
The
ship.
Jedi asked. The
I guess
Marine
he wouldn't
shook
know
his
that.
head and kept his now subtle smile.
No.
Going into the warp.
There is only one fixed entrance and exit, and the suppressor sits virtually beside it.
Then why go to port? Anakin asked.
Because that is where the foul proprietor of this prison has taken my weapons. If my guess is correct,
And his arms?
he will still have them for examination. His hubris and curiosity will be his downfall.
I mean, yeah.
Once I have those weapons, I will be able to create a new way out for both of us.
I mean, just going to throw out the obvious question there. How are you going to pick him up? I mean, admittedly, yes, Psychic could do it. But really? Really? No, scratch that. Probably exactly that, really.
Anakin paused to consider it, but grit his teeth and nodded, activating his lightsaber. The blanks are directly below us? Anakin asked.
He hasn't found out their people
Very
yet.
nearly. I will show you where to cut. We should emerge right on top of them.
Answered the Marine. All right.
Probably could just
Lead
drop
the way,
floor on
Herald.
them.
The Jedi Knights began to say, his words scythed off by the Marine's sudden interjection.
I call you by your name. You should
Oh,
call
actually,
me
I'm
by
getting it.
mine.
He said, Sure, I have to admit, I half expect you to give me a number. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Some of the best men I know have numbers for names. Said Anakin. The
But
Space Marine laughed, but there was no joy in it.
Despite what you see before you, Anakin Skywalker, I am not some tank-bred weapon, grown into a mold to be dumped onto a laboratory floor.
I mean, you are a space marine, so technically, you are mostly grown in a tank and dumped on a floor. It was, especially at the age you're coming from, that is actually literally how some of them were coming up as. I mean, they all were just experiments by the Emperor, so kinda, yeah.
And then given a gun.
I mean-
was born just as you were. My life began under the eyes of 9 burning stars on the desert world of Prospero. There, before I was taken.
Okay, Prospero. That would also explain why he has knowledge outside of what most people do, because Prospero would have records because of their own dealings at that time. And if he was born there normally, it was all the bullshit. Is this Ahriman? Ahriman? I would not have assumed that, but...
Before I was promised justice and strength and a place among the stars by the false Imperium, I was given my name by a family long lost to me.
Is it?
I carry that name still, for it is all I have left of that life when I was but a child, but still wholly myself. I am Iskander Kaon. And I think, General Skywalker, that you will find we have more in common than you may suspect. And I may have more to teach a prodigy like you than you can possibly imagine.
As few people probably have already guessed, I had no idea who Iskander Kaon was. That said, I have since fixed that, and all I have to say is holy shit. I didn't realize him being in Inquisition hands was canon. That is admittedly probably something Games Workshop forgot about, because that was during the 13th Black Crusade, that was during 8th edition, and I mean, it wouldn't be the first time they've pulled up a plot thread a decade or two after they put it out initially. I'm looking at you, Yanari. But at the same time, if it's going to be a couple decades, it might be a while. I don't care, though, because I just read up his story and what's going on and what he would know and what's been happening. And frankly, this is cool. I want more of this. I want to find out what's going on. And I want to see just what this is going to look like to someone who went through all of that bullshit and is basically getting the best choice, and maybe only choice, to have an entire army of people who they know are probably going to get slaughtered, to willingly slaughter themselves to fight the war he already is fighting. This is like a kid in a candy store going, look at all these willing distractions I don't even have to do anything about. He is very much going to be a ripple in the pond, and I could see him coming into conflict with Palpatine more than anyone else, because Palpatine doesn't like other people playing in his pond. And again, that's why there is the conflict right now, because Palpatine saw giant dark presence and goes, nope, mod, back off, bitch. And it didn't work. But I just want to see what's going on. I want to see more. I want to learn more about Kaon. I'll probably do an entire binge of lore on him. Maybe Baltimore has something on him. If he did, nice. If he didn't, there's more Baltimore in general. I'll do that. But either way, this is so freaking cool. We got 1,000 Sun from the initial crusade who grew up on Prospero, I can't speak today, who went through so much of everything, and who is also in a setting that is so removed from his own, but also at the same time is a lot of willing resources who don't understand what they're being willing to fight. Oh, I want to see more from his perspective, or just about him from other people's perspective, figure out what's going on. It's going to be so cool. So if you haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.